The federal government spent 375.8 billion naira on electricity subsidy between January and September in 2023, as power consumers paid a total of 782.6 billion naira for the commodity during the same period. Figures from the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, an agency of the federal government, shows that the government subsidized electricity in the first, second and third quarters of 2023. On subsidy payments, it was observed that in the first quarter of this year, the federal government subsidized power by 36 billion naira. This increased to 135.2 billion naira in the second quarter and jumped to 204.6 billion naira in the third quarter. Figures for the fourth quarter is yet to be released. Meanwhile, the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, has faulted the country's current pricing of gas utilized by gencos in US dollars. While speaking at a forum recently, the minister said the pricing of gas utilized by gencos in dollars affects the pricing of electricity to end users due to foreign exchange volatility, and it is the major issue in Nigeria's power sector. Earlier on, I spoke with Tayo Adegbenle, the executive director at Power Up Initiatives for Electricity Right. I began by asking him if subsidy on electricity is sustainable.
I think you should just swallow speed first, because you have modeled, you have compiled, you have added a lot of issues that we need to disaggregate and sort out one by one. If the direct question is if sustainable, if the subsidy on electricity tariff, if it is sustainable, the immediate answer to that is no. Now, what we need to do is to, first of all, look at the underlying factors. And like I like to say, we need to be able to know the history of the subject matter before we can now delve into it and can make, because people can now understand why we need to look at that issue all over again. Is subsidy on itself a bad thing? The answer is no, it's not a bad thing. But is subsidy administration in Nigeria, is it serving the purpose for which it was meant to serve? The answer is no. Is government able to continue to fund subsidy? The answer is no. So everything that surrounds it, it outrightly says it is not a regime that should be sustained. Let me take you back a bit in history. I mean, not very far, but in 2019, 2020, the Minister of Finance then, Usman, told everybody in Nigeria the plain truth. And I think she wasn't the first person to do that. When Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was the coordinating Minister of Economy in Nigeria, that was as far back as 2010, 2011, 2012. That's what led to the Occupy Nigeria in 2012. It has been established that we cannot continue to carry subsidy. But how do we remove this subsidy has continued to plague every subsequent administration since the Goodluck Jonathan's administration. So eventually, for electricity specifically, eventually in 2020, the regulators introduced what we call the service-based tariff, which was designed in such a way that it will help to eventually remove, the idea was to phase out gradually the tariff subsidy, the subsidy that we're paying on electricity tariff. So we need to put all this into consideration before we can easily jump on the topic. So to answer your question directly, I will say, like I said, no. The subsidy is not sustainable.
How then should the challenge of poor electricity supply be tackled?
The operators of the power sector are not able to charge cost-reflective tariff to end users. The problem with that is government able to also pay when they are supposed to pay the shortfalls, market shortfalls? No. apart from the market shortfalls, don't also forget that we have MBAs, we have the military, we have Air Force that are not also paying. You have the police formation, they are also not paying the cost of electricity. And in fact, the military bill, the debt of the military establishment to the power sector is into billions. How do you want the discos to make up for this? How do you want the people that took their money to go and pay for gas in dollars to make up for this? When the Q1 tariff was done, it was at an official rate of about 440 naira per dollar. By Q3, officially, dollar was about 780. Basically, what that means is that if that's just the only cost of production, tariff should go times 2. Then we also have issues like forex. Inflation. Inflation as of January, February. I mean, as of December 2022, that were used to calculate the first quarter, inflation was about 22%. By the 24%. By the time we were going back for the review in July, inflation has risen to about 28-29%. Now, that is the problem that we are having. We have increase in the cost of production of electricity. Government insisted that tariff should be frozen. Tariff review should be frozen. So we now have a situation where we now have a very big hole to dig.
So if cost-reflective tariff is enforced, what is the hope of SMEs and industries in the country?
See, I think at some point we will need to decide whether we want to run a social state, which I know for a certainty every student of history will tell you the system has failed in places like Russia, Poland, even China they have to open up their borders at some point, with all their communism. We cannot continue to run. This is not a social state. The power sector is no more NEPA. So we cannot continue to run a welfareism. It is either we are ready to run business and let the business run. Let them. I mean, you that you are talking, for instance, you set up a bakery, but somebody now tells you that the cost of one loaf of bread in your bakery is 5 naira. But because my people cannot afford it, you sell it at 3 naira. I will pay you 2 naira. And the person that says will pay you 2 naira for the number of loaves that you have sold is not paying you. How will you continue to be in business? How will you go back to go and buy more wheat to come and make more bread? See, at some point we need to be practical. And while we are saying this, I think, you see, like I keep saying, we cannot close our eyes and solve the power sector problem alone without solving Nigeria's economic problem as a whole.